was completely the worst junk food junkie on the planet, and I started suffering really bad. At one point, I had no attention about health. I could eat whatever I want, right? And it caught up with me when I was 28 years old. So at that point, I mean, I was like arthritic. My fingers, my back. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I had digestive issues. I was a basket case going right into diabetes, and that quickly wakes you up and you start looking at what's going on. And I get this book called Mastering the Zone, and I read the first chapter. It talks about insulin, stuff that I've learned about, but I never associated with me having a problem. And it talked about you need to eat meat to increase the opposing hormone called glucagon. So the next morning I had a buffalo burger for breakfast, and it was like someone took a helmet off my head and like, whoa, I feel so great here. This is amazing. And it was just that's what really started the journey. And I started getting obsessed with health and data and started digging into it, and I never stopped. So then I, of course, as you know, I got into YouTube, started doing a lot of videos to share what I've learned, and I've been doing it ever since.
How much of what you learned in medical school and in residency and training do you think is so opposite of what you're sharing today?
So just so you know, I didn't go through medical school. I went to
sorry,
chiropractic school, but I did go through pre-med, and so I similar subjects, but not to the extreme that you went through it. But I tell you, even in chiropractic, it was crap. The stuff they were taught was just completely mainstream, the opposite of what is the truth. And I had ulcers all through college and grad school, and I was like, it was just outdated information. So unfortunately, the truth is not in these colleges and universities, and it's not there. And I know I probably got the same amount of training into food and nutrition as you did, which is not much. And it's of course on the wrong stuff. So you come out, and unless you study on your own, you're not going to get the data. And I'm sure it's like it's like for example, I had severe right shoulder pain going through school, and even when I graduated many years after. And of course, you have a chiropractor get a hold of that, and I had probably a million adjustments to my neck and my shoulder. Never did anything, right? But no one ever asked me about the diet, right? So it was really destroying my gallbladder and referring pain up to my right shoulder. And it's such a simple question that I wish we would ask more when practice, like, what are you eating? That's just it's not part of the equation. So especially if you need to have a GI doc, right? And they rarely ask you what you're eating. I mean, and then it's just right to the diagnosis. And it's unfortunately sad to see that happening. And they're just ignoring the one thing that is causing almost 100% of the problem.
Obviously, you went into healthcare and healing, and I know in the chiropractic world, there's a little bit more of a holistic approach as
Just
a foundation. Yeah. And although that, like so much of what we learn it's about that there's certain things you stick to and you don't venture away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And was that a difficult transition to sort of venture away from that standard practice of chiropractic and really meld into something that has been a game changer for millions of people around the globe?
I think not for me. For some people, yes, but I quickly, radically changed. Now, I will say one thing about fasting, right? Intermittent fasting. When someone first told me about that, I was like, "What? That's not going to do anything. Fasting? That's a joke." I mean, I just ignored it, right? So, and then I started looking at it, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have snacks between meals, right?" And then I started doing like one meal a day, and that was like a game changer. And so, yeah, it was just fixed ideas. Everyone has them, but typically, if you're hurting and you're sick, it doesn't take much to motivate you. I'm not going to like keep doing the same thing, right? I'm going to make some changes.
How long have you been fasting, and how long do you fast? What is your general practice?
I'm the kind of person that would basically eat dinner and then snack until I went to sleep, right? I would just be constant, and that's really just probably part of my genes. If once I start, I can't stop. And I had the mid-afternoon snack and the mid-morning snack. I did that for years, but then when I started doing fasting, I mean, in my first book recommended just snacking between meals, so I changed that. But basically, I don't snack. I have between 2 meals and 1 meal. I kinda go back and forth. I let my body tell me, when I'm really hungry. I don't eat unless I'm hungry. So sometimes I'll just have 1 meal, sometimes I'll have 2, but I let my body tell me when to fast and how long to fast. Um, but typically, I never have breakfast, so I'll just go and I'll have like, I didn't eat it's right now, it's like probably 1 o'clock. I haven't eaten anything since last night. I'm not hungry. I'll probably just keep going until dinner. But, yeah, that creates some really positive things because it allows you to run on your own fat, and, that's clean fuel. I have the best mood, and then all of a sudden when I eat, I feel like crap, like sometimes or like my mood kinda comes down. And this is the problem with traveling in Europe and France and Italy when you're just looking forward to another meal because it's so good, but then you're feeling like, "Oh, I feel tired now, like, I shoulda just fasted," but you get all this great food around you.
Yeah, that must be very difficult in going around the world and sharing your passion. And there's so much great food, and it's all been it's entertaining for us, and it's social and cultural.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what your particular food habits are. Meat centric, plant centric, and how do you sort of balance those things for your needs?
Yeah, so I have a lot of, doctor friends who are carnivore docs, and I think that's awesome. I personally, I do eat, salads, and I'll have meat, but meat is at my central portion, red meat. I can literally have the same thing every single day, and, I have a lot of red meat. I have different forms of that. I have the fortunate experience of living on a farm, so we have our own cattle, lamb that we eat. I love lamb, and so that's like the base of everything, and I might have a little salad side thing on that, but I don't go into, I don't do any grains or anything like that. Um, I don't do a lot of fruit. So that's pretty much I have like a lot of fat, butter. I do olive oil, and so but I feel most satisfied when I have high quality red meat, and I love lamb as well. So I'll do that, and that's my go-to. Big time. Is that what type of foods do you eat?
I primarily eat steak and meat, although I will occasionally have some French fries, fried in tallow or lard,
Okay.
um, and lots of butter, but also duck grease mayonnaise if I have some,
Wow.
but not frequently.
Okay.
And I will occasionally eat some chicken, but not very frequently. I stay away from fish, but I found a meat centric has been the best thing for me. And I loved salad. I typically stay away from it because it caused a lot of upset for me. And I think
Mm.
would you agree or disagree with, or is it likely that some of us may be more allergic to some foods than others? They're typically going to be in the area, not in the meat area.
Mhm.
And but it's difficult to know exactly who and why, and that meat centric diet may be what we've been missing for so long.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I've never met anyone with a meat allergy. Um, I think there's so many potential things in plants that people could be sensitive to, and especially if you have a history of inflammation in your gut, um, you're gonna do better on a meat-centric diet, and, um, the reason I am not just changing over because I can digest plant, just basically salad type, lettuce type stuff. I can digest it. I have no problem with it. So I just keep doing it. I've not found a problem one way or the other with it. Um, but it's really, I think what people should do is they should just test the waters and see how good they feel with it and without it, and do what works for them. I don't like to tell people you have to eat what I eat. I'm like, you know what? I'll give them the data, let them come up with their own conclusions. That seems to work better. Um, and rather than saying everyone has to eat this one diet. But of course, I do know that low carb is better than high carb. So I know that for a fact. So I will tell people that.
Fats. Where would you put fats in our diet? And have we been sort of misdirected into more plant oils, and we lost sort of the use of animal fats?
Yeah, there's just a whole campaign that has brainwashed us, especially the heart healthy seed oils, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very much against that. But I think, yeah, we've gone low fat. We found that doesn't work. You do not want to do lean protein. There's all sorts of reasons why. I've done many videos on this, but a fatty meat, you're going to feel the best. In fact, I remember when I started doing more protein buffalo burgers instead of all my plant-based crap in the past, my constipation went away because I'm like, why is this working? Because I thought I needed fiber, right? No, I needed more fat and I needed more meat to be able to get my bowels working better. And that was like a brain strain. But yeah, we need saturated fat for many things. Fat soluble vitamins. We need saturated fat for to build hormones, to be able to um, fulfill our perfect digestion. Because people are doing the lean chicken breast, right? I don't. It doesn't digest as well as like a fatty piece of meat. Now, I do raise chickens and pigs, and I've had them tested, and they definitely are higher in omega-6, big time. So I'm just now experimenting on a completely different meal for them that I think will bring those down to almost zero, because now, like, I have no omega-6 fats in their feed. So I'm experimenting with that. I would love to figure that out, because that is the problem with, pork and chicken, is just this, you don't have the good ratios of omega 3 to omega-6 fatty acids.
Is our nutrition full of toxins, or has it been really just deplete of nutrients as our biggest problem?
That's a really good question. I think I'm going to say a deficiency of nutrients, because you can start doing detoxes and start pulling out these toxins for the next millennia, and you're probably not going to feel any better. If you look at your biochemistry, mitochondria, all the different biochemical pathways, um, there's two options. You have one way of kind of pulling out all the things that are blocking, or the other way is to supply all the cofactors. Because one of the things in biochemistry that they don't teach us is that um, you need cofactors. This is why we need vitamins and minerals. Cofactors to allow biochemistry to go from one chemical to the next. I mean, even in the textbooks, it's kind of a side note. So if you could eat nutrient dense foods, red meat is at the top of the list. You're going to have the cofactors to push through the bottlenecks of the biochemistry and make things work. But just by taking more. I mean, let's just take one nutrient, vitamin D, which a lot of people are deficient. So many people have a genetic problem with vitamin D. It's called a polymorphism. So they can't really absorb vitamin D, or they can't convert properly. And then also, if they ever had Lyme disease or Epstein-Barr virus or another infection, even H. pylori, those microbes have downgraded your vitamin D receptor. So now we're not getting enough vitamin D unless you take high doses. And there's a whole bunch of data to show that, even as a maintenance dosage, we need about 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 every single day, just to support not the bone, but the immune system and the other systems that we need, because there's two systems of vitamin D that we're not even taught that in school. Magnesium is another one that's really hard to test. Most people are deficient, and it's involved in like 300 different enzymes. Like vitamin D is involved with 2,500 genes. that's why it's the most important. But magnesium is 300 different biochemical reactions. So, energy, muscle, controlling calcium, so we don't have calcium in the wrong place. And so this is another thing where if you have enough magnesium, all of a sudden your biochemistry starts working, and you don't have to worry about the toxicity as much.
In is it better to replenish our nutrients through a natural diet, or is our food deplete of that, and we really need to focus on supplementing with the pharmaceutical agent?
Maybe like supplementing with vitamins, you mean, like, or nutrition?
Well, vitamins are pharmaceutical. Obviously, they're not a prescription, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So is it we need more supplements, or do we need to just find the right diet that's appropriate for us?
I think certain things you can get from the diet. It's harder to get all the nutrients from food unless you really are working at it, right? And I'll just give you a couple different examples of why I say that. Let's take vitamin D. You, if we need 10,000 IUs, which is, by the way, that's only 1/4 of 1 milligram of vitamin D, D3. If you're basing your data on like 10,000 IUs per day, you're not going to be able to get that from your food. Just do the calculations. You can't get enough vitamin D from the food. Now you can get it from outside, but not in the wintertime. So that's one thing that's really hard to get from your food. Magnesium. Most people have a lot of inflammation. They've eaten poorly for so many years. You can't just give them a maintenance dosage, the RDAs of a vitamin, and think that's going to fix it. You have to give people a lot more to satisfy their severe deficiencies. There's several vitamins that don't get stored well in the body. B1, zinc. So if you're doing like a little more carb than you should, you're depleting your B1 and your zinc. And if you're not putting that back in there, then that's going to be a problem. Now, so there's certain vitamins that I think most people will benefit because they're already so in the hole and they have to build those up. And that would be like zinc, B1, magnesium, vitamin D, things like that. But then there's other nutrients that I don't recommend you take. I recommend you get from the food, like calcium, get it from dairy. But I would not take anything with iron. I'm very much against iron because I think it's really hard to get rid of iron. You can get enough iron from red meat. It's bioavailable. And that way, you know, so many people have too much iron, and then they're like dealing with kind of a rusting out of the liver, cirrhosis, and feeding their microbes. But it's like, it's a really good question because it's kind of individual, but you can get it from your food, most things, but it's not easy. And if you're already sick, you're not going to be able to maintain them. And plus the RDAs are like 100 years old. The RDA for like B1 is 1.4 milligrams. Like 1.4 milligrams of B1, you think that's going to be enough? That is so outdated. These RDAs were developed just to prevent deficiencies, but they're not meant to therapeutically correct anything. So we're operating off of outdated information, primarily because the drug companies could lose a lot of money. Like they try to patent niacin, for example. Niacin is amazing to increase HDL and also to help the mitochondria, because as you get older, like NAD goes down. Well, niacin is a great solution for that. And then so they totally suppressed any good research on vitamin D for years in Harvard. And so it's hard to find good positive things with vitamin D. And so if you ask your local medical doctor, they go, well, the studies show that there's not many studies that show it's positive, but that's absolutely false, 1,000%.
Cortisol, epinephrine, fight or flight, and stress in our lives, which I imagine it was stressful thousands of years ago trying to hunt and gather and survive. But are we in a different stress today that's affecting those hormones? And what can we do to um, decrease the stress, decrease our stress hormones, and help reduce inflammation in our bodies?
Yeah, we have a now we don't have the lion chasing us. We have the mental stress, which actually produces a different type of stress. And then we don't have the activity, the physical activity to burn that adrenaline and drain out that cortisol. So this is why if you're not doing a daily walks or daily workouts and take a good amount of your time to get outside or do physical work, that's going to build up. It's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your insulin levels. I mean, most health problems, whether it's a heart attack, stroke, or even like muscle cramps, occur in the early morning versus other parts of the day because of the higher cortisol. So cortisol is increases your chance of creating clots, which 80% of heart attacks are clot
Mhm,
problems.
mhm.
So we have adrenaline and cortisol. When someone goes through a severe loss of a loved one, they call the broken heart syndrome, their chance of clotting goes up by 2000% and heart attacks go up. So yes, you're right. Stress is a killer that goes beyond the food thing. But also if you're low in magnesium, your cortisol goes up as well. So, and also if your B1 goes down, your cortisol goes up. So I think physical activity, especially as you get older, you need to do consistent, regular walking, hiking, workouts. I don't know how often do you work out?
Well, I always think back to my teenage years and my young years. And I would, in college, I played badminton, tennis. I never loved running. I was in weights and played ball and basketball, football, and everything in school. And today, and then years, I used to run a lot, or I didn't do anything for years. But now I do hour walking. I usually do a treadmill incline. I ride my bike out in the sun down in Florida. It's not very great in upstate New York, unfortunately. And I'd like to do light weights and 100 push-ups a day. And I'm finding now that I'm almost 70. Um,
Wow.
uh, I'm 69. I'll be seven. I'm in my 70th year, and I've never felt better. And
Wow.
I would tell you that it's the movement, and
Mm,
and and somehow that movement managed to work on the mental state also.
yeah, it does, doesn't it? One thing I found that I know you probably are in the computer doing research, reading a lot of the day. I know I don't know I have been, and so we're in our heads, and so you have to extrovert and get out there and just get your attention outside into nature because um, even if you just think about a problem, right? It activates cortisol. When you think about you see a picture of a donut, like all of a sudden you start to create digestive enzymes going on in your stomach. So we have not just pictures of things, but thoughts of just thinking it. So when you're out there walking, you're changing your environment, you're reducing stress. Plus the walking itself can greatly burn off any extra sugar and lowers cortisol. So it's such a powerful way to stay young. I just Monday I turned 60, right? That was
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Oh, great, the 60s, right? But you know what? I feel better now than I have ever in my life. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna try to get younger as I get older.
Do you utilize question is, what's your favorite thing to read, book or focus on thoughts?
No, I basically I'm constantly reading. I love medical physiology. I like pathology. I like to know the mechanisms of all sorts of body problems, but then I like to find out alternative solutions, non-drug solutions. So I've been doing that. I can get into reading guidance physiology for 8 hours straight and just be so into it. So that's what I like doing. My wife's like, "Don't you read anything else? Like you're reading books on mitochondria." I'm like, "Aren't you interested in this novel?" I'm like, "No." So she goes, well, I'm glad you're interested in it because I don't think anyone else is. But yeah, so I buy a lot of medical textbooks that are unfortunately extremely expensive, and that they're like $400 a piece. I'm like, geez, but I just have to get it because it's fascinating.
Well, it is interesting how they're all so expensive.
Yeah,
And
'cause no one
I'm
buys them.
wondering why why wouldn't we make them more accessible at a lower price, that more people can get involved in understanding the knowledge of physiology? Because I think if you know more about how your body works, do you think that gives you more insight how to fix it?
It's basically the more knowledge you have, the more you can control something, period. So, and this is why like you and I, we do videos, we do presentations, and we try to increase understanding so then you can control your own body, right? So you're not just, I mean, the worst thing in the world is to, I see this all the time. Someone has, oh, I have this inflammation. I got to go to the doctor. Okay, now he has me on Prozac. And now I'm like, assisted living home, we did a whole a survey on some software to find out how many medications an assisted living a person in assisted living is taking. You're not going to believe this. It's 48 drugs
Whoa.
per person. So here's the thing. Once you go down that road, like they're ignoring diet, and you can put on this one and this one and this one and this one. I'm trying to prevent that problem by giving people the knowledge. So the next time you have this symptom, you look to the diet, right? And here's some natural remedies you should take first before you go down that route. Because I'm not against poison. I'm sorry, medication, but I mean, you need it at certain times. But I think the abuse of medications, you would agree with, is way too high. And that's why I like docs like you that use food therapy as your primary thing you focus on. I mean, we need more medical doctors doing that, and that's awesome. I want to support that.
Well, I made a little slip when I mentioned your medical training, but in fact, chiropractic is medical training. You're
It's a lot of
learning. I mean, this is dentists, kinesiology. It's all medical training, but they're focused on different ways of treating the disease.
right.
But ultimately, the causes and foundation are the same, but we're looking for different ways to help the human healing state.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I believe that the diet is responsible for the majority of chronic disease in healthcare. So then who is the expert in the diet? Is it a dietitian? Is it a medical doctor? Is that true? Do they get all the training? Is it a chiropractor? We don't get the training. We get the wrong type of training. So I think unless someone, I don't know what you do in your practice, but I know when I was in practice, I basically I did very little chiropractic. I did mostly food therapy. That's all I did for 30 years. And that worked. And then I started doing videos on it, and I started sharing information. So it's the most powerful thing that you can give a person is just giving them the right information on diet. And it's the thing that's missing in medicine and in all healthcare. So I think I have the fortune, a lot of experience working with so many people to see if that theory worked, and I can tell you it does. And a huge effects just by changing the diet. It's just amazing. So I said, well, why can't I just do this online? So we started creating videos. And so, on the website, we have over 8,000 success stories from just by changing diet. And that's, I don't know a lot of people who have that many success stories, but I will say it does work.
I'm a fertility doctor, and I help those suffering from infertility.
Wow.
I've been doing IVF and many procedures for years,
Wow.
and my patients were getting pregnant. I used to talk about we try to de-stress them with acupuncture and massage and yoga classes, and some of them were getting pregnant on paleo diet. This is 20 years ago, and I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is.
Wow.
And I started digging deeper into paleo and keto and and I found carnivore where I found for myself that's what I needed to rid some of my challenges. But I can tell you that paleo, keto, and or carnivore all help so many people
Yeah.
conceive and deliver babies where we couldn't get eggs, we couldn't get anything. It suddenly then happens naturally.
Wow.
And so what do we do to sort of help our colleagues within our professions at least begin to think about incorporating these ideas into their standard treatments?
I think it's hard because if you go through years of training in a certain thing, you become a so-called expert in it. And now it's hard to change sometimes the viewpoints if you're that expert and you have that many diplomas. And so my whole thought is, you know what? I'm going to take the easy route. I want to educate the person on the street, more grassroots. I want to educate their patients, and they will educate the doctor. They'll come in there because you learn so much from your patients. And I just want to say one last thing about that. When I was in practice, I had all of a sudden I started getting referrals from Saudi Arabia flying in to see me on fertility issues. I'm like, who sent? Where did you come from? Like, I'm a chiropractor, but I did food therapy, and it just happened to help a lot of different issues, right? And so then I find out the medical doctor who worked at the Saudi embassy in DC, because I practice in Alexandria, Virginia, said, "Oh yeah, you helped my wife get pregnant." And I was like, "Really? You never told me that." And so just by changing your diet. So then he started sending people from Saudi Arabia, and I would have people. I built a fertility practice on just changing the diet from Saudis flying in and they would stay for weeks and months, and we just get them all squared away. And my wife's like, what's happening in that clinic that you're getting all these women pregnant? I'm saying, no, it's not what you think. but yeah, it's definitely for fertility. I mean, what you can do with the diet, I mean, it's just game changer.
Is the most sinister thing in our diet? What would you label it as?
Well, it's three things. I think if we take a look at any diet, I mean, like this food right here, right? If we take a look at this and this, we have the organic version of a Pop-Tart, right? Is it really the artificial colorings? Is it the preservatives? Not as much as you have the sugars, the industrial sugars, and then you have the seed oils, and then you have this other thing, which is starches. And people don't really understand, like, the starch is actually even worse than the sugar because it's not sweet. So you end up consuming more of it, and it's a filler. So we got maltodextrin, modified food starch, modified cornstarch, wheat flour, all that stuff. It's not even sweet, but it creates a super high blood sugar issue. So seed oils, sugars, and starches are the three things that make up 99% of all junk food. And that is what's messing us up. And of course, if we sprinkle a little this on there, right, because it's genetically modified, Roundup Ready, probably doesn't help either.
And imagine everything you just showed us was wherever it was grown was sprayed with something in order to increase the yield of the product in order to produce higher profits on the product.
Do you realize that a metric ton of corn, not the corn that makes up all your food, it's not even edible, it's called dent corn or field corn, with the subsidies that a taxpayer pays, is $198 per cubic ton? Now, do you know how many boxes of Kellogg's Frosted Flakes you can make from $198? And the profit on that is like 7,000%. Now, if we compare that to meat, it's like 1 to 3% profit. This is why selling meat is not a good business to get into, especially grass-fed, grass-finished. There's no profit, but there's a lot of profit on this stuff right here. So again, this is why we need to support the farmer. This is why we need to remove the subsidies, because you as a taxpayer are paying for the raw material of this, and then you're paying for it again when you buy it, and then you got to pay the doctor for what it created. I mean, it's just like they're just poor consumers just being screwed over 3 times.
From farm to pharma,
Yeah.
we're just corralled, domesticated, I call it. We're basically eating a domesticated diet because we hunted and gathered, but we were not fed in a corral. But that's essentially what we're being, is fed in a corral. And if you feed a wolf and a lion plants of any significance or frequency, they become domesticated dogs and cats. And essentially, if we would focus on more fatty meat and that organic plants in smaller amounts, cooked with duck grease or tallow or lard or butter, and make sure you focus on eating a lot of the fat.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yep. I love it.
Is obesity really is just the symptom of what we've dealing with? I see so much discrimination against people that are obese. In a sense, we doctors treat them poorly and we blame them for their problem.
Right.
Is there something we can do to inspire people to recognize that it's not their fault, but there's something that they can do to take responsibility for making the changes and not waiting for someone else to do it?
I'm sure you've heard like, well, it's just all about calories and you just have poor willpower and you need to cut down your calories. These are all the things that are just completely and utterly false information. And this is why we have the problem, right? Blame it on the patient. It's the food. So if a person would just try this out, lower your carbohydrate, at the very least. I mean, if they're going to start feeling better. They're going to start losing weight. And then they'll have the confidence to maybe it's just not me. Maybe it's the food I'm eating. I said, yeah. Well, the reason why you have low willpower is because you have cravings. And the reason why you have cravings is because your carbs are too high. Wouldn't it be easier if we just get rid of the cravings? How do you do that? We cut out the carbs. And now it becomes doable because you can then not have to do a diet based on your willpower. You could just do it. I mean, if you don't crave, it's going to be easy to do it, right? And then you'll succeed.
You're raising cattle and sheep and pigs and chickens. And what made you decide to go into your own farming, ranching to produce your food versus just letting the industrial complex do it for you?
Yeah, right. Well, just from studying all this stuff and being into it, I said, someday I want to actually have a farm. So when I was 52, we kind of let's move to the farm, right? And I didn't know anything about farming. So this is why we quickly learned, and it's dangerous. I almost killed myself many, many times trying to deliver hay on the side of a hill with a 1,000-pound hay thing with the front loader too high. And then the whole thing tips over, goes over a cliff. So anyway, I almost lost my life many times and had severe injuries. It's dangerous, but I survived, and I love it. I love living on a farm. I love taking care of animals. I like feeding them. I like learning about it. I like eating the animals. I never used to like lamb. Oh my God. It's so delicious now. I mean, I eat, like my wife, she cooks this lamb that on our property. And I'm like, we don't even talk to each other. We're just like in heaven, just eating this incredible meat. And I'm like, did you write down how you made that? No, I just add this little salt, stuff like that. But it's tell you, people come over on the farm and they eat this food and they're like, what the heck? This is so different. And I said, I know, I'm lucky. And then the water too, right? Well water. So, yeah, I'm staying on the farm.
Have we lost our appreciation for where our food comes from?
Yeah.
And I know I travel, I fly across the country and always looking down and taking pictures and notice the number of large farms. And the small farm is going away. No one's doing their own food anymore.
Yeah.
It's becoming industrialized, and is it important that we be the example on how it can be done? And I'm just curious, did you read a book on how to do this, or are there people out there that want to help that happen in creating your small farm or ranch?
There's like Joel Salatin has a lot of books. I've read his books on, and he's like 2 hours north of me. And so um, there's quite a few great, good things going to be happening in the area of small farmers coming up real soon. So I want to support that, get the word out, and help the small farmer because that's where our food comes from. And this is what we do as influencers or social media influencers. We try to increase the demand for real food, farmers markets, buy food online where you can find it grass fed, grass finished. And so it's changing. You probably have heard a lot of on the news like, oh, plant-based meats are the new trend, and plant-based is clean meat, and they're going to even do lab meat. I'm going to tell you right now, I know for a fact, based on a lot of surveys, the trend is not that. It's not going to be that. It makes you sick. The trend is going to be meat because people feel better. It's nutrient dense. It's the thing that can heal you more than any other. It's the most healing food you could eat. So that is going to be, because it works. It's going to continue to be a trend. It's not going to be, they're trying to do all sorts of propaganda to discourage people, but people ignore that, like, oh yeah, meat causes cancer. It's going to create colon cancer. People don't buy into that because they can quickly go to social media, watch a video from you or me and go, oh, false, 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 false. So they underestimated the power of, TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, so we can get the truth out there without having it be suppressed. But there's some serious campaigns and going on to try to discredit meat so they can replace their lab meat or their, Bill Gates's, veggie burger,
Yeah, fake meat.
fake meat. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I agree with you. Would you say that your impact in this world has exponentially improved because you decided to go against the grain of standard practice healthcare and put yourself out there for ridicule and in so much in so many ways, but impacted so many of us. And I just say this because I learned from people like you, and learned from my patients,
Mm-hmm.
and we're hoping that our medical communities on all sides will begin to listen and learn from what you're doing. Um,
I'm convinced that if you just take all the things that mainstream is telling you to do and you go exactly in the opposite direction, you are going to hit the truth. It's like I'm totally convinced of that in every case, and it provides a lot of great content for videos because people are watching this and they're like, "Wow, yeah, I never thought about that. That makes sense." But people are at the state where they just want things that work. They're not interested in just because someone is an expert. That's no longer the case. Yeah, but experts don't always get good results. Well, then you're not an expert in the thing that you're talking about. So especially well, I'm certified in obesity, but well, then you're like 300 pounds. So I'm not, would you go to a dentist that has rotten teeth? No. Would you go to someone with marriage counseling that's never been married? No. You want someone that has experience getting results in something. And I think, especially with what you do, what I do, the amount of people that have like gut inflammation, autoimmune stuff, and you just make simple changes and now all of a sudden they're like a walking billboard for health, and then they tell their friends and it's spreading. So I think what we do is we increase demand for the right thing, and once people do it, they know that it's true, but there's no trust on the other side anymore. There's no trust in big pharma, big food. They don't. And that's why the campaigns that they use are not from their own company. They use front groups like the American Dietetic Association, even the American Heart Association. You probably saw that. They defended a bill, or they didn't want a bill to pass that would get rid of sodas for food stamps. Like, what is the American Heart Association supporting, or actually supporting the big food? Like, wait a second. Well, they become a front group because they're getting paid endorsements. So unfortunately, people don't trust that, and they see through that all day long.
And I think they're finding huge amount of trust through the people like yourself and the podcasting and sharing knowledge and information. And that's there. Now it's there for everyone to have access without the university or the post training in a residency or an internship and things like that. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Berg, thank you very much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. And we're all learning so much. So keep doing it. And I look forward to trying some of your lamb sometime.
Thank you very much. And I will gladly have you sample that, because you'll be soonly addicted to lamb, especially high quality.
Yeah, I grew up with lamb. That was my mother would get me lamb for my birthday. We didn't have it very often, but that was my birthday gift because I loved lamb. Lamb chops were like my go-to. So
I never thought I would like lamb, and I'm into it.
Cool. Well, God bless and thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
very much.